Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 231. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, bang bang.
Connor's not here.
No.
Commiserations, world's smallest violin playing just for him.
Or for some people, celebrations.
Confetti, trombones, everyone celebrate. Now he's waiting his new computer. He should be back probably, if not the end of the month, then early next month. So I look forward to his, let's be honest, mediocre return. That's not going to be anything more than that. But this is our DC Comics podcast. We talk about DC Comics every week, and today's show we'll be looking at Dark Knight's Death Metal, the last stories of the DC Universe, issue 1. Endless Winter Part 2, which is the Flash 767, and then Part 3, which is Superman Endless Winter Special issue 1, and we also have Wonder Woman 768 till oh no, we don't have that, no, because you didn't read that. We have Batman Black and White issue 1, so we get 5 simple books, although obviously that first one is a big 80-page mammoth with lots of things in it, so we'll be talking about that. So interesting mix of stuff. We got a bit of news as well, some more March creative teams, one of which dropped like an hour after we recorded last week.
Yeah,
I saw it on Twitter and I was like, oh god damn it, why is news dropping now?
It always happens, right?
Yeah, it's super annoying. To be honest, I don't remember which ones we talked about last week, so I'll sum up the entire list of new book creators at the end of this, but the one that did drop at the end of the show last week that we just missed was the new Wonder Woman creative team, which I'm a little disappointed that Tamaki's run is ending prematurely. It's not that it's been amazing, it's been solid and fun to read.
It just seems like since Rucka, no one's been able to have like a long run except Orlando, which we didn't read.
Yeah, Wilson's was a bit longer and it had like maybe 3 arcs. And that's probably been the best one.
When you're double shipping, that's still not very long.
Yeah, but that's probably been the best one since Rucka. I think Tamaki's has been a fun story. I've actually got a lot of nice things to say about this week's issue, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But I do kind of... I hope that... I mean, so the new team is Becky Cloonan. At least the art is starting with Michael W. Conrad and Travis Moore. Now, I'm not necessarily as high on Becky Cloonan at a glance. You know, G. Willow Wilson and Mariko Tamaki were both names that were kind of my picks for Wonder Woman. And neither one got to go on to have like a huge long run that I was kind of hoping for. I do hope that if Becky Cloonan's run is good, I hope it does actually end up being a run and isn't just a couple of arcs, which it seems to be a bit of a trend recently for some reason with a lot of these books. But that's starting in March with Wonder Woman issue 770. So there you go. That's the new team there. I mean, how do you feel about Cloonan? Did you have a particular...
outside of her work with Snyder during Batman, where she was an artist, I just had to pull her up to see what she's worked on, which is nothing really that I've read, but I think, okay, so she worked on Conan over at Dark Horse, which I think I remember hearing good things about. Oh, she did an arc on Northlanders. I'll have to check that out. So I have the whole series sitting back there. I don't know if this is art or writing. So, but yeah, so far I'm going through stuff and there's not a lot that I'm familiar with. So, cool. I mean, I'll probably check it out, but being that we're in this new frontier of comics, that might not be an insta-pull anymore, like it has been from Rebirth.
Well, I mean, I think it's an insta try. You know, whenever there's a new team on Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But there's certain books that I had like slated up, like Batman. Like, I'll probably always keep reading Batman, but you know, and Wonder Woman had finally achieved that for me. It's just now where I have to start making better decisions. That it might just, I shouldn't say better. I have to start being more definitive in my decisions.
I mean, obviously, we'll give it a try. I mean, I don't have a bad opinion of Becky Cloonan. I don't think I've read anything from her beyond the odd short here that's in an anthology or the odd thing there. I've not really read any proper arcs or runs written by Becky Cloonan, so I don't have strong opinions in that sense. But hopefully it works out. I will say the image that went out with this does have all of the has Donna on it, has Cassie on it, has a new Wonder Woman on it. It's got the whole shebang. Liar Liar's still there, so it's nice that some of the stuff that's going on just now is seemingly sticking around in continuity.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool.
Or I guess maybe more accurately, in some relevance, because it's one thing to be in continuity, it's another thing to actually be relevant, because a lot of things aren't relevant even if they are technically in continuity. So that's the Wonder Woman team. There was new teams for Harley Quinn, which is a new book because obviously the previous run ended, the previous series ended a while ago. It's worth mentioning. So but we also got a new team for Batman Superman, which that surprised me actually. I did not expect that to get a change. I just kind of assumed that the book would end whenever Williamson's run ended. I just assumed it would be done then. Because it was a fairly standalone, rompy little book. I didn't necessarily think, but I guess it's selling well enough given what it is.
You want to tell people who's on the Harley Quinn book?
Oh, it's everyone's favorite. You get Stephanie Phillips writing, who I'm not familiar with. Art by Riley Rosmo, so Connor is pumped.
Yeah, as someone that's taken a liking to Harley in the last year or so, the Rosmo announcement on art was really a bummer because that's gonna keep me away more than anything.
Yeah, I feel like Harley's a character that has also grown on me, but her ongoing book I think is going to consistently be something that's not for me. I think when she pops up in a Black Label book, when she pops up in Batman or whatever, like she's really grown me in those capacities when they can do something darker with her. But her fun, wacky, Deadpool-esque ongoing book, I don't think is probably ever going to appeal to me. I could be wrong. I could be proven wrong.
Yeah,
but
I mean that's fair. But again, for me, art's a big hurdle, and if I don't like the artist particularly, I mean their work, I should say, then it's gonna be hard for me to really enjoy the book. So yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah. Interestingly, the writer taking over of Batman Superman with issue 16 in March is Gene Luen Yang, so this is where he's ending up on something.
As I made the decision, like I need to read less stuff, and I was like, oh, I could, no more Williamson on Batman Superman. That's fine. Oh wait, Yang? I like Yang a lot. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, new creative teams, you'll get a chance at least. I feel like Williamson's been doing good stuff on that book. The last arc wasn't as good, but it's typically been a very good little rompy, inconsequential but fun to read series of adventures. So I feel like Yang is kind of the perfect person to continue that if they're going to keep going with it. So we'll see. Also, it would be nice to see him write Superman that's not the t-shirt and jeans.
Well, yeah, and not new Superman, although I would hope that Keenan shows up.
Oh, I mean, hell, I wouldn't mind him going back. If they gave him a new Superman book, whatever they want to call it, Justice League of China, I'd be down for it. I really like that book. So,
all right. So because neither of us really knew much about Stephanie Phillips, I pulled her up. I guess she's done the more graphic novels. So I don't know if that's like the kids kind of focus stuff. But graphic novels such as Harley Quinn, Superman, Tanara, The Butcher of Paris, which is something I wanted to read and then just in the grand scheme of things I haven't had time for. But it also says she has a PhD from the University of South Florida in rhetoric and composition. So that's pretty cool. But also she's a Muay Thai fighter and hockey player. So, damn you, Rosmo. Because this artist or this writer seems like the type of person that should be writing Harley Quinn.
It seems like the type of person that Matt would leave his wife for, to be honest, given that description.
Let's not go that far. Because she also likes cats, old westerns, and macaroni and cheese shaped like cartoons. Almost there.
Nothing wrong with cats. How do you shut your mouth?
But I don't know of too many comic creators that do have an actual PhD in rhetoric and composition. Like, let alone that also does Muay Thai and plays hockey. Like, come on now. So yeah, that's a bit bummer. I still wish I knew more of the books that she wrote. Although I might check out Butcher Paris now. I might see if that's in trade by now. Next time I go into my shop, maybe check that out. But yeah.
That's the thing. Even if you end up discovering you really like this writer, Stephanie Phillips, you're still saddled with Rosmo art.
Oh yeah, but it'll know if I have to be much more sad, being like, oh, what am I missing out on? Or it's like, oh, okay, this is fine. I am not missing out on too much,
Matt, looking for reasons to be more sad.
Not more sad, just trying to manage. Because again, if I had the time, I would read everything, right? Like,
of course.
So
I wouldn't.
So yeah, of course not. You're not even watching The Mandalorian, which is fantastic.
Of course not. Yeah, and they announced like 7 new Star Wars shows this week. I don't have time for all that shit.
No, for all the excitement that was going on what day was that? Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday. Yeah.
I think anytime I popped onto Twitter, Pete was talking about video game stuff because concurrently video game announcements were being made.
Yeah, the awards were on, so there was announcements there at the same time as Disney's investor call.
So as we're sharing, Marvel trailers or Star Wars news, Pete's over there like some Mass Effect thing.
Yeah.
Sharing. So yeah. For sure. What's some of these other teams that we didn't discuss yet?
Right. So that was Harley and Batman, Superman. We did mention Suicide Squad and Swamp Thing, I believe, last week.
Huh.
But there was one minor update to this, is that the Swamp Thing book is not an ongoing. It is a 10-issue limited series. So, well, I'd love that to be ongoing. I'm also not mad that it gets 10 issues. Like, I think, Ram V, Mike Perkins, it means that Mike Perkins is probably going to be the artist for all 10 issues then.
Yep.
I would expect. So, that sounds good. Good.
Definitely.
Yeah. And they also gave us a little bit of a description for Suicide Squad. So I'll read that as well. This is Robbie Thompson, Suicide Squad, that he's doing with Eduardo Pansica. Mm-hmm. Peacemaker's taking center stage as the leader of Task Force X. A bit of movie synergy there, if you ask me. The series starts off with a bang as Waller sends Peacemaker and Task Force X to recruit its next member, Talon, the master assassin of the Court of Owls. Reads DC's description. Meanwhile, she has her own hands full as she tries to recruit Superboy?
Not a fan of that.
Well, first of all, which Superboy? There's two of them.
Yeah, either way, my statement still stands.
I mean, I don't imagine she'll be super successful.
No.
But we'll see. So that's an interesting caveat.
Make Connor the Red Hood of Superman. Let's not do that, please.
Oh, he so is as well.
No, he is not.
He's got a temper. He's the Red Hood. He's the Red Hood of Superman.
How dare you?
He's even died and came back.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And we talked about Teen Titans Academy and Green Lantern last week, if I recall correctly. So yeah, I don't need to update on that. And then we talked about the Detective last week. So I think that was everything. I'll just confirm this complete list because I posted it on Twitter via the DC Comics Podcast Twitter. That's at DC Comics Podcast to follow us on Twitter if you want to do that. But I did post a full list just so to confirm all these and just sort of recap them as well. Just here's everything in just black and white. Detective Comics from March on will be Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora. At least starting. Obviously, it's double shipping, so the artist is probably going to rotate around. Harley Quinn, Stephanie Phillips and Riley Rosmo. Batman, Superman, Jean Luen Yang with Ivan Reis to start off with. Wonder Woman, Becky Cloonan with Michael W. Conrad. And then we have Green Lantern, which is Jeffrey Thorne with Tom Rainey. Justice League Dark, which is just continuing with Ram V and Zermanico. Teen Titans Academy, which is Tim Sheridan with Rafa Sandoval. And the 10 issues limited series of Swamp Thing, which is Ram V and Mike Perkins. So that's what we've got so far. We're still waiting on who the new Flash writer is going to be, because obviously that's waiting for a new run, a new team. So we'll see, because it was just had that pretty bad fill-in arc over the last couple months.
Yeah, I hate to hear that.
Yeah. It didn't. The first issue was kind of crazy, but then it was like as it went on, I was kind of wishing I hadn't committed to reading. But it was like, there's only one left. I might as well read the last one, and I was like, I shouldn't have read the last one. I should have just.
Oh boy.
I should have opted out. But hey ho, that's what it is. So there you go. That was all the team news. But one bit of news that came out here, is that they revealed the identity of the new Batman that's going to be popping up in Future State. And I think everyone was expecting Luke Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not Luke Fox.
Oh no.
His name is Tim.
Okay.
Tim Fox.
Yeah.
I was pausing there because I was hoping you would get excited thinking it was Tim Drake.
No. Because huge discrepancy in Fox and Tim Drake. Like,
Oh, sure.
and and from the art that I've seen, it does not look like, unless they're going completely different.
I wasn't
directions.
sure you'd seen this, Matt, so
Yeah.
I was trying to toy with your emotions a little bit. Yeah, so this is Luke's brother, of course, who's going to be the new Batman. The art looks quite good, though. Like, in the suit, he looks quite good. No cowl on, so we can see his face, but
Right. I don't know. Seems. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with his future state, so maybe it's so far ahead that they had to go younger. Because if I remember right, I'm trying to remember his family that was in that
yeah,
in Batman 100.
Yeah, the short, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but when we went through the solicits, when me and Carl went through the solicits for Future State, it did specify the year that all the Gotham stuff was taking place in, and it wasn't super far. I don't think it was, but there was, because there was other things that were much further. But I think it was like 2027 or 2030 or something like that. It was in the nearish future, but a bit further ahead. So I don't know. Then again, what's the point of even dealing with the years in comic books, given that they have to condense the timeline every few years so that people age too much?
When it's called future state, you're dealing with the future, just how far in the future. I mean, we're seeing, a grown-up John acting as Superman, so we know we're further enough as far as Superman's concerned. But is that, and you would assume all the Justice League are interacting with one another.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that this is not actually a new character. I mean, it mentions here in the Newsarama article that he was introduced in 1979's Batman 313 by Len Wein and Irv Novick, which is interesting, but it's a very... I mean, they just say here that it's a very sparse appearance, especially in recent years, because, I mean, I couldn't have named you this character. If you'd asked me, like, oh, name the other Fox children, I'd be like, wait, there's other ones? Like, that would be my response.
I know there's Luke and there's the daughter.
Yes.
It's Tam, right?
That sounds right. I don't know. But
yeah.
But I mean, hey, I mean, maybe this is the reason. Maybe that's the reason why they're using this character. Maybe that's the reason why Ridley wants to work with this character, so it's more of a blank slate and can do what he wants with them, basically. So, but definitely worth mentioning. And so we'll get to this in the next Batman, which is part of Future State. So there you go. So that is the news. Good stuff. So yeah. Just before we get to the books, since we brought up the Disney investor thing, I'll just but what was your favorite thing from the announcements?
So I mean, there's a lot of cool Marvel MCU stuff. The Falcon and Winter Soldier looks exactly my kind of thing, so I'm excited for that. And then on the Star Wars side, Patty Jenkins doing a Rogue Squadron movie that is going to be just the piloting aspect. So essentially, Top Gun meets Star Wars. I'm super stoked. Which her little announcement talking about her father, who was in the Air Force and died in the line of duty, led me to look her history, and she's had a very I don't want to say strange. It's not strange, but a very different upbringing to become a director. It's real cool, and it's real cool that she can actually work that in. And I'm sitting here going, like, Warner's, you had someone that could have made a Green Lantern thing, like, right there. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not looking for competence from Warner's.
It's
and
as much of a DC guy I am when it comes to comics, I am very much MCU and Star Wars in general. So there's a lot there, and it always burns me. Like I went and saw a friend for the first time in forever, and it was all safe, still, despite being at his house, socially distant and whatnot. But we watched the portal scene from Endgame, and it just upsets me that we don't have anything close to that for Warner's.
Well, I've been laughing actually this week because all these announcements for Spider-Man 3, where they're bringing back the other Spider-Man actors, the villains from those other movies, and they're doing some sort of multiverse shenanigans. I started laughing because they've been they've been talking about this next Flash movie, essentially doing that for all the different Batman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's occurred to me that this Spider-Man 3 is probably going to sneak out in front, and because this was maybe the one thing that they could do that Marvel's not done this, we can do this and connect all these old versions of things, but they're going to sneak in and take it from them. But it's, anyway, that's what it is. I didn't really talk about that. I mean, I'll be honest, I was pretty cynical during all these announcements. Not so much. I mean, I don't like Star Wars, so seeing like 7 Star Wars shows announced is just kind of like eye rolling, but not so much Marvel, even though I do think like they announced a lot. Like they announced like 4 new Disney Plus shows: the Armor Wars, Secret Invasion, Ironheart, like bunch of stuff. Although I do like that Tim Ross coming back for She-Hulk. I like that Incredible Hulk movie is becoming more connected again.
And they're bringing in Ruffalo as well,
of course,
which is cool.
But I was feeling, because Disney, like, okay, I get that Star Wars and Marvel are going to continually be milked because they're these ongoing things that they're going to keep making, but you look at the rest of their output that they announced, and they've got Sister Act 3, Hocus Pocus 2, Turner and Hooch spin-off TV show, 3 Men and a Baby reboot, the Lightyear, the Toy Story prequel, a spin-off show for Zootopia, a spin-off show for Cars, and it's just like, could you please do something that isn't a sequel, a reboot, a remake, or a prequel, please?
Yeah. That said, their approach to Lightyear, I kind of like. It's basically with the movie that inspired the toy, right? So it's really not a prequel per se, but it's the Buzz Lightyear IP, if you will.
This is not a critique of any one of them individually. It's more about them all existing.
No, I get you with the rest of them. I was just blown away about the Lightyear one. That's something I never thought in a million years, you know. And especially if Chris Evans attached. Like that's completely crazy. I mean, but then they did bring up their next couple slate of animated films that seem all pretty original, which I'm excited for.
I said that when I was doing the TV news. I did a solo TV news just today, which ended up being almost 2 hours long because there was so much goddamn stuff.
Yeah.
But I talked about how Pixar and Disney Animated, they seem more 50-50, where they had some original things and they had some non-original things. But all of the live action movies and TV shows were all spin-offs, sequels, prequels, with the exception for, bizarrely, there was like 4 seemingly kind of original things, but they were all true stories, all based on sports, like people. For some reason, they've got a whole section dedicated to athletes that they're making, or coaches that they're making TV shows about. So I guess cool, whatever.
Sure, they announced a lot of ESPN Plus stuff too that I don't care about. So I probably just skimmed over those thinking they were ESPN Plus. The new Mighty Ducks show, I'm pretty excited for, just because I didn't realize they were getting Emilio Estevez. So
it should be.
That's pretty cool.
It shouldn't be him. It should be Jackson. It should be Joshua Jackson.
It should be, and maybe they got a thing up their sleeve. You know, I don't know. Maybe. But so I saw that trailer yesterday, so that's pretty cool. But no, yeah, just seeing and then you look over at Warner's and there's not a hell of a lot, and Snyder Cut.
There is one big thing. They're pissing off every director in Hollywood by putting their movies on HBO Max day one next year.
Which we kind of knew was gonna piss off people. But you got to do what you got to do, right? Like, especially with me, none of my theaters are open, and all the ones that I could go to are kind of far away. So, you know, if it's safe, given the chance, yes, I'll see these in the theater. I like the theater experience, but what, are you going to make it super insular and just make it, you know, like, I read this really interesting article that was basically bringing up, there was a law that kind of got quietly rescinded that made the old studio system illegal, in that the theaters couldn't be owned by the production companies, by the studios. And this has quietly started kind of to go away. And that some people are kind of floating like, oh, you know, Disney could buy a theater and Warner's could buy a theater, and then they would only show their movies at that theater, and it would go back to that old way.
Oh, geez.
But the whole idea that was making, you know, monopolies, and that this law was put into place back in, I think, the 50s,
You'd have to have like
set that out.
the 5 or 6 major theaters like chains all near you to be able to see every movie. That'd be insane.
Well, and that's kind of what it feels like right now. That if like, and I get the directors and stuff pushing back because they don't necessarily create film. I mean, I'm sure there's a money aspect to it, right? But they also don't create films to just be watched on at home in the TV. You know, they want it to be seen properly.
It's not
like
it's not just the filmmakers though. It's just the Legendary are apparently really upset with Warner Brothers because they actually, I mean, they paid for the majority of some of these big movies that are coming out. And
well, and that's why I talk about the financial side of it. I fully get that they have a lot sunken in, and you're not going to make as much on HBO Max as you will in the theater.
Legendary were offered, or Legendary / Warner Bros. Were offered like 200 and something million for Godzilla versus King Kong, and Legendary wanted to take it. They were like, yeah, let's just break even on this right now and put it on Netflix. And Warner Bros. Said no, and now they're putting it on HBO Max, and I don't know what Legendary make from that, or what sort of profit margin they get from that. So
but as I was gonna say, the idea of watching King Kong versus Godzilla at home isn't the same as going to the theater. Like, I want to see that in the theater with the sound and all that. Like, especially like an Atmos theater. Like I saw the first Kong Skull Island. Like, come on. Or even something like Dune, which I'm not that excited for, but I can't imagine watching that for the first time on my TV. So I hope they get all figured out. I hope once stuff starts, maybe a vaccine gets, propagated and you can be safe going out in theaters again. Because just the whole idea of being in a closed off room with strangers, it gives me the creeps at this point. And not the creeps because of the people, just because of, like all this stuff, especially right now. So, and then I miss my theaters. I haven't stepped foot in my home theater since March. And I miss it.
I have one exception because I did go to see Tenet in August, September, whatever that was.
Yeah, whenever that came out.
And it was kind of surreal. It was a surreal experience going at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, the last time was I think late February. I think I'm glad I went to see Tenet because if movie theaters don't come back, if they're done because everything goes streaming and they never recover, I'm glad that I went to see Tenet because otherwise the last movie I ever saw in theaters would have been Bram's The Boy 2. So
Tim was thwarted.
So I'm very. So it's funny. It's Christopher Nolan was at the Game Awards. He was brought. I mean, they were all just on screen because it's 2020. But he was there to present Game of the Year, which is the big award. That's the big one at the end. And it was so surreal because he comes on and he's like, I'm Christopher Nolan and I love to make, thoughtful films, breathtaking, this blah blah. And it says, and video games seem interesting. I mean, that's not exactly what he said, but that's the way it came off. He was like,
that's the vibe. Yeah.
Video games are pushing storytelling in these interesting different ways that I mean, I did genuinely feel like he appreciates that it's a different medium that's doing other things, but at the same time you could kind of tell that he doesn't really know much about them. He's just kind of saying the nice things, but that was weird. That was all weird.
Yeah, weird move by him. But yeah, so I would love to go to the theater, but I understand. I know people making plans to go see Wonder Woman in the theater. I'm like, I'm just gonna stay home on Christmas and watch it from the comfort of my house. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I leave like
but
that.
I also understand if you don't have HBO Max because you are in a place where it's not. I understand being a little bit upset and having to seek it out elsewhere. I don't know how it's gonna work in other countries that don't have HBO Max.
I would recommend to anyone in a country without HBO Max to look into VPNs. They're very useful things. But especially when it's a deal that's really bad, because apparently some of the solutions are going to be it's a premium rental in countries that don't have HBO Max, so it's going to be a $30 rental or something like that, which is come on.
It's weird though because I'll gladly spend $30 for me and my wife to go see a movie at the theater, and then you end up spending more because popcorn and soda, right? But the idea of spending $30 to watch it on my own TV, there's a disconnect there that I can't explain.
Yeah. I mean, I've literally not spent a penny on concessions at a movie theater in like over a decade, but
yeah, no, I gotta get my popcorn, man. I love it.
I don't need it. I don't need it. The most I'll do is I'll take in something from elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's cheaper.
My theater did, get a little bit more loose about bringing in water, right? So if I didn't want a soda, as long as I had an unopened bottle of water, they didn't seem to care too much. So, but that said, you get in there, get the popcorn smell wafting in, sneak in your own candies if you want, But yeah, so I do miss it. So just the idea of going is there. Like I hope stuff is better by March, April, when Kong was supposed to come out, or May. I can't keep track anymore, but it's still a long time away. A lot can happen in between now and then.
Yeah, it was either March before or it's March now after it got pushed a year. I can't remember which time it was May and which time it was March.
Yeah, I can't keep things straight anymore. So
hey, all right. Well, let's talk about comics then. Let's talk about comics. Dark Knight's Death Metal, the last stories of the DC Universe, issue 1. A bunch of stories in here, a bunch of creators. We'll mention them as we go through. So this is very much set right where we are in Death Metal, which is we're about to head into the final battle, which is the last couple issues of Death Metal. We're getting one this month, yes, and one in January, which wraps things up. So, and there's a big focus on the Titans here as well as other characters. The first story is also the last story. It's like a wraparound called Together, which is by Joshua Williamson, James Tynion IV, and Scott Snyder. With Travis Moore on art. So we'll kind of mention the first half of this now, and we'll sort of go through in order and come back to it when we wrap up. But it focuses mainly on Donna, and she's on the island formerly known as Themyscira, and she's interacting with Beast Boy and talking about their worries and about the doom of this could be the last night on Earth. But there's kind of a feel-good moment when she realizes that all the Titans of different generations, not every single member, because some are dead, and so on, but even the weird new team that Damien's got, which they do kind of crack a joke about them counting as Titans. It's like, everyone counts, don't be mean. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, but if they're also counting Ray Palmer and Kyle Rayner.
From Titans, yeah, sure. I mean, I appreciated that because I did enjoy that Titans book, and I like Kyle being there. So
yeah,
well,
he was even on. I think we discussed this back when we were reading Titans. When he was first introduced, he was on a Titans team at one point.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Some weird fill-in in between Titans, Young Justice.
There's a 2-page spread or layout where it sort of puts all the different versions of the teams in panels. I thought it was going backwards through time, but that can't be true because Jeff Johns' Teen Titans comes before the New 52 Teen Titans, so clearly it's not exactly in order, but it's kind of going back in time for the most. The New Teen Titans is there. You turn the page, and of course you get the original 5 with 2 of them grayed out. One because he's dead, that being Roy, and one being Wally, who's obviously doing all the metal things. Yes, indisposed until later.
Well, yeah, because it's not really going backwards through time, but it kind of was. It's like someone messed up.
Yeah, it's kind of like they accidentally swapped 2 of them.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, admittedly, I don't really know much about the third team there. I'm not familiar with that batch.
That was the one that Ray Palmer was on because he got de-aged to teen years.
Sure.
Weird stuff that happened. I think that was post 0 Hour.
Okay. Yeah, so it feels like they've just swapped Jeff Johns and because it seems like because after those 2 that are swapped around, you got New Teen Titans, and then I assume that this team after New Teen Titans is kind of the later Silver Age, bigger group. Or Bronze Age, maybe a better term, but
because you have the original Hawk and Dove in there. You got looks like Bumblebee and the redheaded. I think that's Omen.
Yeah, Omen.
Lilith. Yeah. So. It was cool. His art here, just the way that Moore is able to shift to the different kind of art styles of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, he even makes the Raven from New 52 look decent, which is real tough because I hated that look. So
yeah, I wasn't a fan of. I mean, I read like one issue of that book and ran away for the hills.
yeah, no, I read way more than I should have. So, but yeah, no, this was a really cool page, and in my physical copy, it got, I don't know, because of the binding, it kind of messed with the art a little bit. So on this page, which is a big splash in the physical, the closer you get towards the crease, the less you can see.
I shit you not. One of the reasons why I even switched to single issues back when the New 52 started was because I was sick of 2-page spreads having this weird problem in the middle of trades where, because it's good, don't get me wrong, if you got a nice hardcover with a sewn binding, it was solved because it would pop up and present like flat. But in a regular trade, which has got glued binding, you have this gutter that kind of loses a little bit in the middle, and it's
in it just the fact that it covered up most of young Wally West right there.
Oh,
and I was just like, oh man! And then you have to deal with it on the next page where he's grayed out, and I'm just like, is this a meta commentary from somebody, or what's going on? Who's butchering Moore's art? Yeah.
So Dick leaves because Batman's called a meeting. So there's a little bit of synergy between the stories where there's a little bit of continuity between the various ones. So Donna says, "Say hi to Babs for me."
Before the fight starts,
which is neat. They address the fact that some of the more villainous teens are there, including Terra.
Yeah, which I like. Deathstroke's team showing up, which was cool.
But the first part of this Titan story ends when there's a crack of lightning. Everyone's like, "Oh, what's that?" And Wally's arrived, and Donna's looking at him, all angry. And obviously, this comes back later. I have to confess something though here. Yeah. Later on, when it's made clear the reason why she's looking at him angry and there's tension because he showed up is because she, of course, was kind of she had a relationship with Roy, and Wally killed Roy in Heroes in Crisis. I have to confess that I have blanked that event from my mind so much that I had no idea why she was pissed at him until they mentioned it.
I forgot why she's dead.
Yeah, I had no idea.
No. I mean, it's pretty clear here, like, because when
because of the art,
it puts them together, and I was like, oh man, Roy's the only one not showing up.
Well, technically, we'll get to that.
Yeah, well, that gets addressed. But yeah, so seeing Wally there, it's pretty cool. But yeah, his art here is fantastic. Like, trying to think of the other Travis Moore stuff I might have seen.
I don't think of him as an artist typically that I'm excited about, but tends to be solid enough in the right context. And here is definitely right context.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah. The next story is a Green Lantern story called Last Nights, spelled with a K, which is Jeff Lemire with Raphael Albuquerque art. So hell of a team on this. Yeah. And this is
the story too.
Yeah, this is Hal Jordan essentially he just wants to fly on his last night before this big fight, and he flies over the air base, kind of reminisces about the Silver Age and the old times. And he goes to the Valley of the Rainbow Rings, and it's all these rings that have fallen that have not got replacements. All these rings, and Sinestro shows up, who's in yellow, which is notable because of course Sinestro gave up the ultraviolet spectrum just in the last issue or two of the main. Well, it wasn't the main book; it was a Justice League arc, but same difference.
Yeah, it was the one with Nightwing as a barbarian.
Yeah,
because they freed him from the.
And Sinestro, it just kind of implies that he wants something to be old times, and Hal's you don't deserve it. But he kind of turns around, he changes his mind. It's never too late for another chance, and I should have. For all people, I should know that. I mean, let's be fair. Yes, Hal, you've done a lot of shady stuff. You've been various evil versions of yourself over the years. So he says the oath. He becomes a Green Lantern once more, and the story ends with them flying off as a pair, to feel hope and no fear, and all the rest of it. So
I really like this. When does Lemire get to be a Green Lantern writer?
Yeah, I know.
Because this was real cool. Because just the way that he name dropped the different characters and how they were handling their last days and stuff, I really liked. And then when we got to the part where it's almost subtle, what Sinestro wants. Like it took me a second to put together,
Mm-hmm.
but Hal immediately picked up on it, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, this was a nice story that played upon the relationship and felt like it was harkening back to an old time. And if this issue, the whole point of this issue is to kind of have characters be nostalgic before they go into this final fight. It works really well. My only critique, and it feels weird to critique Albuquerque because, of course, he's great. I don't think his Sinestro head or face is always that good.
I mean, even his Hal is kind of a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, I think it was the first time you see Sinestro, and you turn the page, and he's standing there with the yellow suit on. His head just looked kind of weird. That it spoiled the moment a little bit for me because I was like, "Oh, Sinestro! Oh, he looks a bit weird."
Yeah.
So
But then the other pages, he looks fine. Like the next page over, where he's looking down at the yellow ring.
Well, when he says the Green Lantern oath and he's like standing with that, it looks great. So it's not like a consistent problem, but there's definitely some poses and angles where he looks a bit off.
Yeah, definitely not Albuquerque's best work, but still, I think it's good enough here, Yeah,
I mean, it's not a huge complaint, but it is there.
No.
The next story is a Wonder Woman story by Mariko Tamaki with Daniel Sampier on the art. I will say this is one of the ones that left me feeling a bit cold. I wasn't super into this.
It seemed like, I don't want to say all over the place, but it was like there's just a lot going on, and the narration doesn't really connect through them. Like I understood what the point of the story was, and that that Wonder Woman has to take her weakness and make it a strength, right? But yeah, and just the whole Donna from Another Earth being down in that area, I thought was weird.
Yeah, the weird pit from Death Metal.
Yeah, so it was just kind of disjointed. That's the word that I wanted to use.
It's one of those things where, so sometimes you'll read like one of these shorts. I mean, sometimes a whole issue, I suppose. But you read one of these shorts, and I just feel the narration just feels like there's a lot to read. I don't feel like it's saying that much, and ultimately, I'm not entirely sure what I gained from this story. She kind of just comes back with the will to fight, but I don't necessarily feel like it made any sort of great point, or I felt like, oh, that was the beat that we're going for, or whatever. It kind of felt like a nothing story. I mean, sure, yeah, you got alternate Donna talking about how her world fell, and you've got her brief interaction with the Riddler, where the Riddler's asking her,
that riddle didn't make any sense. And I get riddles are hard to write, but like, let me go back to it real quick, just because it was.
Oh, please.
What do you call a creature whose greatest strength is their weakness? Someone who can never win and never lose. Someone who must fight for justice but bring the end of justice. And Diana goes, I give up. A Wonder Woman. Okay, I guess that's a stretch, though.
Yeah, it didn't land for me.
Didn't land.
Yeah,
no. The art, though, Sampier's art, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah,
like it looks, that battle-worn Donna, just with, you can see the scars on her, and just like she looks weary. And then you go to the next page, and it's Diana remembering, as the events had happened that led her, to becoming this warden.
Matt,
I just think.
Reset your mic for me, will you?
Gotcha.
It's not quite the usual thing, but there was a little bit of something there.
You good?
Yeah, I think so.
You good now? Okay.
Also, move your phone away if your phone's anywhere near your mic.
No, my phone's on the opposite side.
Okay.
Right here.
All right. Okay. Well, I've done all the troubleshooting I can.
Yes. We're good.
So
it's probably the computer, because this computer is on its legs, I'm pretty sure. So maybe I'll try it from my laptop next week. We'll see how that goes. So, but anyway,
I have nothing super positive to say about the Wonder Woman story. It just kind of felt like filler to me. Alternatively, the next story is a Green Arrow and Black Canary story, which I felt like was directly kind of winking at Deceased a little bit here, where they're sitting, they're in Themyscira, and Dinah's like, oh, I have one regret. I never had an oath. Every time those Green Lanterns, say their oath, I get kind of jealous. And I just had this big smirk in my face because I'm like, oh, Gail Simone's been reading Deceased and enjoying it because she's into this.
And if you know about her and her little fun rivalry with Tom Taylor, then that was definitely a wink and a nod, to him. So I thought that was pretty cool. I did not like the art in this one.
I agree. I was not a fan of the art. Sometimes, like on the second page, like Dinah's like face, her smile is like so wide, it's unnerving.
Yeah, it's very manga-esque, and if that's your thing, cool. It's not mine. And just like some of the, like on the next page over from that one, Ollie kind of looks like a Ken doll in that top corner.
Sure.
Like he's just kind of expressionless, but a smile, and just, but the story I really enjoyed, just them trying to enjoy their last night. And
yeah, because Ollie's regret is that they never really got a proper date with Dinah. They just kind of had this affair immediately, and he tries to take her to the beach. They get attacked by Joker Megs, not just Joker Sharks, Joker Megs.
Joker Megs, right?
It's just a fun little joke, and he has this thing where he tries to give her an oath, basically, and he gets down on one knee as he does it. And she says afterwards, the person I love is going to ask me to marry me. I want them to do it when things are happy, and they still want to marry me, and not because I'm the last like bit of hope for happiness in a hopeless world. And the gut wrenching reveal at the very end, of course, is that he did have a ring on him, and he was maybe going to actually do it.
Yeah.
Which is actually really, in the context of the whole issue, it's neat that it teases a wedding here, because there is obviously something that comes up later. Right. But where the story actually goes here is that a character shows up. Now, admittedly, I hate the name Laurel because of the TV show.
Yeah,
it's made me hate it. But
it is Dinah's mom's name. DC
that's true. No, that is true. It does come from the comics as well. It's just that TV show has tainted it. I'm not saying that.
I get it, but see, to me, just having a Laurel Queen, or Laurel Lance Queen. So this character shows up that calls herself Black Arrow, and she's from an Earth that got destroyed.
Yeah, she's their kid from a different Earth. And when Oliver says that she has canary eyes, your mother's eyes, she kind of snickers, because we find out that on her Earth they were flipped. Dinah was a Green Arrow and he was the Black Canary. So we get like a fun panel of them in alternate costumes. But they sort of like accept this kid of like, oh, we're kind of parents, and we're going to be here for this kid who lost her her version of us. So that's kind of nice. And she sort of recites the oath that Oliver just gave her, which is, I am the wall, I am the shield, and I do not run. I see the evil coming towards you, and I do not run. I stand between you and the darkness, and I do not run. So that's the Black Canary oath, apparently.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Taylor will not use in future Deceased. It's a Green Lantern oath, damn it.
Although I will say that if we get to the next issue of Deceased and her thing is I will not run, then then we'll know.
It depends if they've been in cahoots, because I feel like she became a Green Lantern in the first Deceased, so that's been long enough where Gail Simone, just having read that as a fan, will have time to have put this in. Right. But there's only like 2 issues of Deceased left, or 1 issue even. So I think he's got time. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll. Oh no,
I just mean maybe he knew.
Oh sure, yeah, okay.
So this was in the workings for a little bit. It had to have been. So
yeah, this was McGann Hetrick was on the art here.
Yeah.
So we know who we're insulting. Very similar to the Wonder Woman story. I thought the next story with Aquaman was, again, just felt like a chore and filler to me.
Yeah, I did not like. I like the art.
The art's pretty. Yeah.
I get the point of it, and at this point, we've gotten Arthur as the ruminating dad a lot.
Oh yeah, the point of this story is that he's saying that his child and his wife is more important to him than everything else, which you could have made that point in 1 page. It takes like 10 and it's just him swimming through the ocean with narration talking about the shadows and the coming of war and blah blah.
Well, and I like the whole metaphor about the blue whale, that she lived, and she kept her family line going, and she gave, the ocean took her back, and then through her bones she was able to give back to the ocean. I like all of that. I will give you that is a coherent thought on that page, but I will say that it takes 7 pages to get to that. And that's what I'm saying. I like that in an issue of Aquaman, not in a story that's meant to be like the last, Aquaman story, if you will, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I just this is one of these ones where I felt like this was more of like the writer trying to do a poem in the
yeah,
narration, and it just kind of doesn't really have much of a story. This was
definitely.
Christopher Sebula who wrote this with art by Christopher Mooneyham, and Mooneyham's art is pretty nice. It
Yes.
looks quite good. Unfortunately, I just this felt like a chore to read because it kind of became clear after a few pages that there wasn't going to be much to this. It was just going to be him swimming about thinking
Yeah.
and waxing lyrically about
Yeah.
things. And that can come off a bit, I don't want to say pretentious, but it definitely felt a little bit that way here.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of seem to be bouncing back and forth. And in true form, we're back to another good one here, which is the Bat family story. Where Batman wants to talk to the team, and he's talking to Barbara to begin with, and he asks her to go assemble the boys, as he puts it.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting Carl Urban and Huey and all that to show up.
I will say that I do appreciate this version of Bruce going to Barbara, as she's kind of the second. Like, we always get, Grayson as the second, but I do like the idea that it is Babs. Like, go, because, and not just because she might be older, but she is different, right? She is the first Bat Lady, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of like the idea of both of them being the two elder kids, like
Yeah, but like, to me, she's the more responsible one. So she's the one that he's gonna task with doing the important things.
Oh, I'm not going to argue with her being more responsible than Dick.
Yeah,
in a
right.
typical
So I like that dynamic here, and she kind of pushes because she's it's the end of the world, and she's worried about her stuff. Her what would she say? Her implant that helps her walk.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I liked all that.
There's an implication here that might be failing, and she could end up back in the wheelchair. I would suspect that might not be something that actually sticks once we reset everything, but we'll see.
Right.
I mean, because Batman is putting her in the position of being more of Oracle, regardless of the wheelchair. Right. So I'll be interested to see if they feel the need to actually like impair her in some way, physically. Even if it's not full on, she has to be in a wheelchair. Maybe it'll just be a case of, you can't really do flips and kicks anymore. You're kind of grounded to more normal human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see.
But I just like that layer too on top of it, that she's, the end of the world's coming, but also the end of her world, as she, you know what I mean. She's worried about the end of Batgirl. So in this moment,
she goes to get Tim, who's playing cards with some of the villains, as you do. Jason's flirting with an arms dealer.
An armorer, I would say.
Yeah. Well, she has guns too. She hasn't shown him the guns yet, so I mean, so there was definitely arms. Dick's learned to cook, and they kind of flirt a little bit, where he says, "Can I make you a snack?" And she's like, "I thought you were the snack." And so that comes from her, but then he tries to okay, I kind of want to have a moment with you. If we might die tomorrow, I want to have like a bit of one-on-one about us. And she gets kind of pissed. She doesn't really want to burden herself with like caring about someone like that right before this battle, right before this fight to the death, and she doesn't want any emotional bombs, as she puts it. Batman has his meeting with them, tells them to essentially shape up, leave things behind, and get prepared. Gives him a bit of a pep talk. Honestly, it's probably the most fatherly pep talk he's given in quite some time.
Yeah.
So. But they're left alone, and Dick and Babs, he tries to kind of push this, and he wants to talk about them. And Batman pops up and says, "Look, you have to skip to the end and resolve this dispute that you're having right now, because we don't have time for it. You're just going to have to get to the point." And Dick just turns to her and says, "Marry me, Barbara." Which it's one of those things where, in the context of the story, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's built up to. But in the context of the history of the characters, it feels like a really kind of fist pumping, like, yeah, finally, some progress.
I immediately thought of you when I read this.
Yeah, but I actually really liked her response, where she says, "Wait, you think that's where we end? Don't you?" Well, yeah, I guess I do. It's like they both agree that they kind of see themselves getting married someday. Maybe when they're a bit older and they're and they're both in their 30s or whatever. I don't know what age they're supposed to be right now. But and Batman just sort of hand waves and says, "Okay, by the power invested in me by no one, you're married, done." Right? And they kind of agreed, okay, we're not really married, but we'll be married for tonight. And for one night, we'll be a married couple. And then he even promises to win her back. Once this is all over, I'm going to win you back, and it's going to be real at some point.
I love how she's like, if we live through this is annulled.
Yeah. It's like, yeah,
I like that.
Until I win you back. I was actually surprised to find this was written by Cecil Castellucci to a point, because I liked it so much. Admittedly, I do think Batman's narration that's playing throughout the story is probably the weakest part, and that
Very stilted.
Yeah, that does remind me of Cecil Castellucci's writing on the Batgirl book. So, I think
also the early characterization of Dick, I thought was a little bit weird, just because it's just, I don't know, he seems very flippant and like, I don't know. There's not a suaveness to him, but maybe you just chalk that up to it's the end of the world. He's talking to the girl that he's got eyes for. I don't know.
Yeah. Mirka Andolfo was the artist on this one.
It was pretty decent. I mean,
they're solid.
For characters kind of standing around and talking, like it looks really good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it was nice. So I don't know. It was a fist pumping moment. It's something if you're a fan of the Dick Babs relationship, and you're sort of rooting for the hit, it's in some way, and Dick said, refers to her, from the moment I met you, I knew you were my other half. It's kind of sweet. Kind of throwing Corey under the bus a little bit, but
I mean, there's gonna be those people that like Dick fire. There's other people that love,
Yeah, no one wants their dick to be on fire, so right away, it's a bad idea.
I love when they bring up their relationship. To me, it's like in the DCU book, the YOU version, where she goes off to Key West. He comes to visit, and like they're just mature people. She's like, I'll always have feelings for you, but we've kind of grown past them. And it was just that's how I like their relationship.
Yeah, and we break the trend here because we've been sort of like good story, bad story, good story, bad story. So that was a good one. So I was expecting a bad one next, but luckily it was the Mark Waid Superman story. So
feels so good, right?
Trend broken, and it's one of these things. So he's got the long hair because and this is his metal hair from the metal story,
right? And his dark side hand.
And because John's came back from the future, in a time sphere or whatever, he's got a part of it. He's made a little time travel device because he's trying to like fix all these things on this night before Doomsday. No. Forgive the use of the word Doomsday. I don't mean Doomsday. Just Doomsday in the general sense. So he goes back in time once just for this 1 hour to try and save a few more people and solve a few more problems. And he does it a third time, and he just keeps doing it. And it's this story of him just trying to, farm in certain places, build a bridge here, save some people there, and eventually we get almost a Superman the movie shot, but it's like tons of Supermen, like all going around the planet. Notably, there's just the faintest S forming in the surface of the Earth, or whatever the planet technically is just now in metal. And it's just talking about the people need hope, they need to believe, and the idea that Superman for once could be everywhere and do everything for an hour and give everyone some hope. And it of course ends with him going back to Lois and John. It's really interesting to see, I mean there's not much, obviously, he doesn't even have a line of dialogue, but it's interesting to hear Waid write Superman talking about his son, because that's something we've never seen before, because, Waid, the last time he wrote Superman, it was long before John Kent existed.
Right, it was, birthright, right? Like...
And Francis Manipul's in the art in this as well, should mention that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's just like there's a confidence and an understanding of what Superman means. Like I think Mark Waid has always understood how important Superman should feel and the ideals of what Superman should represent to the planet. So this just felt like Waid still got it. Like he still knows how to write Superman.
Definitely. There's parts that made me super emotional. Throughout this, because I get to see Superman doing Superman things, and in 2020 I think that's way more like it hits a little bit harder. And just like the shot of him showing up in like this battle crusted metropolis, and Jimmy's just hugging him and Perry's shaking his hand, like that single image, or Kara hugging him, and the next panel over, a guy's gonna jump and he goes to, help him off the ledge. Just there's these little things that we don't see Superman do very much, And I'm glad that Wade took the time in a story like this. Whereas I said, like, the Aquaman story, like, that would have been fine for an issue. This is, I think, the best use of Superman in a story like this because it's quick. There's not a lot of dialogue, right? It's his actions, not his words for once. And
yeah, it's
very moving.
It's very moving. It's hard not to be in love with Wade being back on Superman in some form, and hopefully this forbidden door being opened to Mark Waid means that at some point we can get some more Mark Waid on DC books, Superman or otherwise. I'll take just about anything. So then we come back to the conclusion of Together, and everyone's kind of like standing and like waiting for this face off with Donna and Wally, and she just hugs him. And not says she understands, don't have to say anything. You're always one of us, that kind of thing. And she gives an inspirational speech about how Titans are always together. They do acknowledge, and this is again the continuity, Babs is there with Dick, like he's brought her back, and Cyborg's like rubbing his hair saying, you know, the old dog, you, and Starfire says, I'm happy for both of you. Starfire approves of the wedding.
Yeah. I do love coming into Miss Martian's story. Remember when Robin accidentally yelled Titans tacos? I need the rest of that story. Like I do. I mean, that definitely feels like it comes from like a cartoon story. Yeah. So I'm wondering if it does. And
then of course, Batman with his Black Lantern ring raises Roy from the dead, and Roy appears, and he
still wearing that stupid ass hat.
I know he's up to the others, and Wally feels awkward about going over to him, and it's all just told in the art. And Roy just sort of like tips his hat to him to sort of let him know that it's okay.
Right.
And that's basically it. So they write together on the sand, and we get this great final page of all the generations of Titans. And I think what makes this work, and why I think they have chosen the Titans here as the wraparound for this story, is that the Titans, not only because they represent just about every corner of DC, because you have Bat characters, Flash characters, super characters, whatever. I think because DC is so much about legacy, and what us longtime DC fans all love about DC is the idea of legacy, is having not just the legacy of all these legacy characters who come from Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, whatever. It's that Titans themselves now have their own legacy of different Titans generations. So you have this legacy within it's legacy, like Inception.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's like this web of, you're not really a legacy character until you've spent time in the Titans. So, John's not here, right? But Damian kind of is. So, just that kind of thing. Like, yeah, sure, John might be the future, and he's the future Superman and future state, but he really wasn't a Titan. He's not like
Dick
Grayson. Yeah, at least not yet. He could be down the line or whatever.
I should point out, you said kinda here. I get what you meant by that, but just to clarify, he's not actually literally here in this group because he quit before.
Right.
Yeah.
But he was part of the Titans.
Yes. I'm just, before someone corrects in the comments, I'm just
No. I got you. But they do mention him not being here.
They do. Yeah.
So they did put it up. So yeah. But yeah, even Kyle Rayner, who was like one of the famous throughout the 90s, early 2000s legacy characters, because he took over for Hal after, what was that? What was that story? Anyways, was it Emerald Knights? I can't remember.
Emerald Dawn?
But Emerald Dawn, there you go. Emerald Dawn. When he takes over for him and stuff, and, that was always his thing was, where do I fit in the legacy? So it's cool that he's here with the Titans on this last page,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this Titan story. It's a long time. I mean, Titans are one of my gateways into comics. That was one of the first comics I started picking up. It was that and Superman Batman back in 2004. So just the fact that we get this issue, because this was probably an actual issue's worth of story in this Titans, if I had to count.
I mean, it probably is. I don't know if it would work on its own as a story. It'd probably feel like nothing happens without the context of some of the stories that take place in between.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like it makes the majority of this story. And I like what that means, and and having hope, because
well, it even
these characters are the future.
As much as I didn't really like the Wonder Woman story, having an alternate Donna in there, plus obviously a lot of dick focus in the Bat family stuff, it does mean that the Titans' influence kind of sprinkles into the other ones as well, even if it's not everything. So, yeah, I mean, so I didn't like the Aquaman story, I didn't like the Wonder Woman story, but the rest of them all vary from good to great, if not fantastic. Some of them are just touching as long-time DC fans, some of them are just excellent on their own. I mean, the best one, just on a pure craft and working as a standalone thing level, is probably the Superman story.
Yeah.
But moment of the book might be the Marry Me.
I figured you'd say that.
You know, it's just you know, this is what it is. But there you go. That's the last stories of the DC universe. Matt, what are you giving the book?
And this is probably my Titans bias showing, but I'm going to give this an 8. I'm going to excuse the 2 stories that I didn't enjoy that much, but the Wonder Woman story had fantastic art in that one, and so did the Aquaman story. And then some of the stories I didn't enjoy that much, you know, at least they had the art. And then the ones that I did enjoy, you know, especially the Travis Moore art, I think is really strong through the Titan story.
I think the point you were trying to make there, but you were kind of dancing around it, is that some of the stories you liked didn't have the best art, but some of the ones you didn't like had good art.
There you go.
That's what you're trying to say.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go 8.5. There's a couple of stories I didn't like in it, but the vast majority of it and the weight of the stuff that I did like was big enough and hit enough that I'm very happy I read this. I wasn't mad that it was 80 pages. I was like, no, you know what? Like 60 of those pages were well worth reading. And at that point, I'm at like, you know what, 75-80% of the whole thing. So it's like, yeah, go on. All right.
Yep.
So, The Flash 767. This is, of course, Endless Winter Part 2. Andy Lanning and Ron Marz writing, with Clayton Henry and Marco Santucci on the art. Santucci, of course, doing the flashback at the start. He's going to carry forward into the next issue we talk about as well, because it also has a similar flashback. And we can talk about these one by one, I think, because they are very separate in terms of like what they're doing.
They are, and I appreciate that, because there's an overall story to be told with the Frost King, but we're getting each character's, you know. So in the Flash story, we get very Flash focused, and in Superman, it's very Superman focused. But they both feel like they're in the same event.
Yeah, right? It's also nice that this one kind of is teasing the Black Adam stuff, because we know he's getting a special later, so it's kind of nice that that's kind of been teed up a little bit. But we start off with the flashback, and the flashback in this is less to do with the because the flashback in the next one, which we're going to talk about, is about the origin of the Frost King himself. This is more about the Viking era Avengers that we've got here.
Avengers. Justice League.
Oh, sorry, Justice League. Freudian slip. That's because of Jason Aaron's thing.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, it's basically Black Adam waiting in like a tavern for Hippolyta, and the
Hippolyta, Viking Prince, and
Viking Prince. I never remember what the Viking Prince name is.
Yeah,
it's just kind of
Viking Prince.
But Black Adam is picking a fight with Viking Prince. The Swamp Thing at the time shows up and says, you know, we don't have time for this. You know, stop this, cease this immediately. Because the Frost King pops up, and it's basically just like showing them having to sort of work together in their kind of uneasy alliance. You know, Black Adam doesn't really like working with them. There's some tension there.
Yeah. He's definitely his anti-hero self. He's ordering more alcohol from the tavern, of course, and just kind of making a show of himself. He's very Thor-esque from early Thor stories. But I do like that it's Swamp Thing that shows up to kind of talk the sense into him, because then that plays up later, because as we get to the future, he's really the only one that's familiar with what's going on. Yeah.
And he's very withholding of it. So obviously the story does revolve around the Flash, because part of me was wondering if it was going to just be an Endless Winter chapter and not actually, you know, address the idea that it is a Flash issue. But no, it does actually all come from the Flash's perspective, as he's running around the world doing various things, as the Justice League are, you know, all in different places fighting off these frost like monsters that are appearing that the Frost King can create out of nowhere. And he's basically told to go and essentially chat to Black Adam, because Black Adam went to the UN and made an announcement that Kandak is open for refugees who feel they've been failed by the Justice League and failed by the West, and he will take people in.
It is a Black Adam move.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Very Black Adam.
Yeah,
I love it.
Notably, he does not mention that he knows who this guy is, or he has any information on this crisis that's happening. Again, forgive the use of the word crisis. Not a crisis, just a crisis. So Flash goes to see him in Kandak, gets attacked by some frost monsters. I keep wanting to say frost giants, but they're not frost giants. So I'm being very specific.
Yeah, we'll call them ice giants.
Ice giants. There you go. Black Adam ends up saving his ass along with his team, including Silver Banshee and Catman and Multiplex. All those.
Yeah, it's a team of villains. But yeah, they're all working together to save the Flash, which is cool.
I thought Catman shouldn't be on the team of villains.
No, not that team of villains. Him with Black Adam and Silver Banshee, I get. All right, but with the rest of them, come on, man.
I'm just saying, you got
respect for Thomas Blake.
You got some support on Twitter for calling out.
That's how I know the real ones that read Secret Six. Because if you have a lot of opinions about Catman, probably read Gale's Secret Six.
Yeah, so. I get the feeling here that in this conversation Barry has with Black Adam, because at the end of the scene, Black Adam's like, "Oh, there was some very useful information in that conversation." I get the feeling that Barry's kind of put his foot in it by revealing too much of what's going on to Black Adam.
Here's my one issue with Endless Winter so far, is that Lanning and Marz are writing Barry a lot like Wally.
Sure. That's been kind of a problem ever since the New 52. Ever since Barry came back, there's a lot of writers who write Barry like Wally.
I mean, when they have a handle on Barry, it works real well. But most of the time, it almost feels like a Wally West impersonation. That said, it's not bad. I feel like I'm reading Wally in these moments where he's kind of stammering and giving away a little bit too much. Or even in the Endless Winter Part 1, where he's asking people about their work-life balance. That's a very Wally West question.
I think the problem is that Wally was the Flash for so long that just became the characteristics of the Flash. So you've got a lot of writers who know that version of Flash. They've been asked to write Barry. They're just writing Barry like Wally because that's the Flash they know, and that's just, unfortunately. There's a cool bit here though, because Barry is complaining throughout the issue that his Speed Force is kind of like weakening because the snow and the ice, and there's a lot of talk in this issue of hypothermia and how quickly everyone's going to die and so on and so on. But he says he's a recharge. He's running low. The lightning's getting weaker, and Black Adam's like, "Oh, lightning!" You say, and he just strikes him with lightning. He's like, "Oh, I got a recharge. Thanks."
Yeah, and for those that doubt about that, don't forget that part of the Shazam thing is speed from whatever god. I forget who it is for Black Adam.
Mercury. Yeah,
but for Shazam, for Captain Marvel and Billy, whatever version we're calling him, it is the speed of Mercury. So I was like, no, you can make an exception there.
It's a cool moment. I'll take it.
Yeah, I like it.
But Barry does reveal that Stag Industries released the Frost King from the Arctic Circle. And it feels like at the end of the scene, Black Adam's like, oh, because he's like, we might call on you for help in this situation because goddamn, things are getting rough.
Right.
But at the end, he smiles very sinisterly and says, "Oh, I'm certain you will. Thank you for a most useful conversation." So, I'm liking the teasing of the Black Adam stuff because it feels like okay, they're planting this for later for his special, and that's kind of neat. The only thing I don't like about this issue, honestly, is that it kind of ends very abruptly. Barry goes back to the city. Iris is fending off an ice giant with the heatwave gun.
Which I did like. I like that Iris is resourceful enough to go to the Flash.
Oh yeah.
And grab one of Heatwave's guns. I was like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, no. And it just kind of ends.
Yeah, it's like they kiss, and it's like he's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go off to help Justice League. Okay, continues in Superman Endless Winter special. Okay. And maybe they get away with that because they know they're out on the same day, and we just go to the next one. But it's kind of weird.
It is. No, it definitely is. But no, I mean, other than that, it was a really solid issue, and I'm impressed with how cohesive it is because, and I get it, they're just writing these like their chapters in Endless Winter, and they're slotting in, so like the next one is going to be an Aquaman, right? So I'm sure that'll be Aquaman's perspective of Endless Winter, but it'll still
move the story,
push the story forward, which is kind of refreshing with like Metal, where Metal we have the one spine, and then all these superfluous, I have to say that slow, kind of tie-ins that some land, some don't. Here, thus far, it all lands.
To be fair with Metal, I think most of them have. I think there's only been a couple that have been weak.
I guess, I don't know. I'm just kind of at my, I don't say width there, but
I think they're both valid ways of doing things. It's nice that if we're going to have both of these running simultaneously, I like that this is doing it completely differently.
And that's my point, because when it comes to these type of events, it's very copy paste. When it comes to different things, like especially Marvel does the same kind of thing with endless tie-ins and then a spine book. So it's nice that this is different, that there is still room for both.
I will say I am happy that the Barry and Iris chemistry here felt right, because one of the complaints of the fill-in arc was that Barry and Iris' dialogue and relationship felt really weird, and like it was from a different. It felt like they'd been dating for like 3 weeks the way they were talking to each other. It was very odd.
Felt like that.
So I'm glad that this is this feels normal again. I will say I wasn't in love with the main art in this. That's not quite my style, I guess. There's something about Henry's like heads and the way his characters smile that I don't always love.
And that's very Clayton Henry. When he's in action, it always looks good. But when they're still, because that was my problem when he did the weekly with Gail Simone, was like Flash in action, great. Flash standing there, kind of weird. So no, I get that. He also, the long heads in Batman Superman was always a little bit weird. So, but at least he's consistent with it, I will say.
Definitely.
It makes it part of his style.
It's definitely consistent, because I've had the exact same problem with everything I've seen him do. So, I mean, I'll admit, I'd forgot. It's just that sort of thing where I don't necessarily remember who everyone is immediately, but as soon as I saw the heads, I'm like, oh, it's this guy. This is who Henry is. All right, what are you giving Flash 767?
So I'm going to give this one an 8. Yeah, I'm going to give this one an 8 as well, like I did, just because I thought, like, again, cohesive story going forward. The art didn't bother me as much as it bothered you. And it was just, it's a fun read. I'm looking forward to Endless Winter every week.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a solid 7. I think it's a fine second chapter. I like what it's teasing story-wise. Didn't love the art, though, and the ending's a bit abrupt and weird. But I enjoy the world building, the building of, like, this is going on, everywhere's covered in the snow, because that's what happened at the end of the first issue, is that, the world, got this endless winter. So, I'm digging it. I'm digging the building.
Yep.
Superman, Endless Winter, Special, Issue 1, Andy Lanning, Ron Marz again writing. Phil Hestor is the main artist, but with Mariko Santucci back again as the flashback artist early on. It's nice that there's a consistency there for the flashback stuff, actually. It kind of ties it together nicely. So obviously it's Superman's perspective. But to start with the flashback, though, since that's what we're dealing with here.
And we get the origin of the Frost King here.
Yeah, so he was in Greenland, in the Arctic Circle, obviously, and he was with a clan, a town, and he was a father, and his son was attacked by a polar bear, and basically he discovered in this long winter, which they had, like, was it the Fimble winter they called it?
Fimble winter, which is like it's in Norse mythology, it's the time right before Ragnarok.
Yeah, it's like a 3-year winter, they say. Which I should know that, because in God of War, the video game, they talk about a winter that lasts 3 summers. Before Ragnarok, and the second game is God of War Ragnarok, which is coming next year, presumably. So
so that means Kratos is going to be taking on the gods then, huh? He's the
I'll just say, I'll give you a spoiler warning for the first God of War game here, everyone. I want to tease Matt. The post-credits scene has Thor in it.
Yeah. Well, I did read through the story because my brother could not help himself by telling me stuff, and so I know Loki's involved, and it's very different from typical. So I was like, well, Thor's got to show up at some point, and I know enough of God of War to know he fights gods. So, anyway.
So so this guy is Edwald Ofelson, who discovers he has ice powers and freezes this polar bear in this attack. The town at first loves him and realizes, he can defend us from all these things that happen. He can defend us from wolves. But the winter doesn't end, and eventually they turn on him and think he's a freak. They think that he's to blame for this winter, and they come after him. They try to burn his house down. He fights back, and in all this chaos, one of his children, one of his sons, is shot with an arrow and dies. And we kind of end on a cliffhanger of him seemingly about to go icy supernova, if you will. And that's where the end. So it feels like, this is his big villain turn point where he's going to go full Frost King and never come back. So, but again, it just keeps it teasing.
I love the Viking designs here because you can tell, like, from our first look at the Frost King, you could tell this is him, right? So I do like that he eventually goes with a much more scary look, as he goes. And how does it say how long before the Justice League gets involved? 10th century, so this is around the same time.
Sure.
So whatever he does after this is what leads to the flashback we saw in the last issue, or even the first issue where they have to go get, Black Adam.
Yeah, the VGL. Sorry, the VGL.
Viking Justice League.
The VGL, yes.
Or Justice League Viking, really. JLV.
JLV. That's easy to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
For some reason, a J in the middle of an acronym is really hard to say without saying a G instead.
Yeah. Right. But yeah. And then we get to the Phil Hestor art, which I personally love.
No, it's pretty good. It's got a distinct style to it. Obviously, it's very different from the previous, but it's very inky cartoon. I would describe it.
Yes.
But
it reminds me of the animated series stuff with Batman and Superman.
Sure.
The early morning, and maybe that's why I love it so much. But even his monsters look great because they look different.
Yeah, we go to Metropolis, and Wonder Woman's like leading Jimmy and some survivors from the planet. Even though it's like, the cold could kill them, but they have to try and get somewhere safer.
Yep.
And there's like an article by Lois that kind of forms the narration of the story, which it gives it a very distinct voice for this issue. And obviously it focuses on Superman once we get to him because he shows up and saves them. But I think what I'm impressed with the writing of this story, because it is the same pair writing the whole thing, is that this did feel like, we shifted to a Superman issue, and it feels like a Superman issue.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, definitely. And so, like I said in the Flash one, although this one I think does it a little bit more effectively, because I think they have a better handle on Superman than they do on Barry. But we get the flashback at the beginning that fills in the Endless Winter story, and then we have how Superman's handling the Endless Winter. So
yeah, which boils down to essentially two sequences here where he's worried about Lois, and Lois says, "No, we've got it fine. I'm independent. I'm going to help everyone here. You go and do what's important, and just you coming back is all that matters." So and there's there's a 2-page layout of Superman saving people on ships and fighting ice monsters and whatever, and then,
leading the gorillas in Gorilla City.
Just
ice giants.
A variety of things, and then he comes back to the Kent farm and sees his parents. Crypto kills one of the ice monsters, and it essentially has a similar thing, and they point this out in the dialogue where essentially Ma and Pa Kent say the same thing as Lois. No, look, we can handle this ourselves, although Pa Kent's worried about the heating bill, as he would be.
Yeah.
But no, as long as you come back, that's all that's important. This is your job, and that S in your chest, okay, it's the biggest burden's on you, but we all share it. Everyone who knows you and is part of your life shares it a little bit. And he's like, "Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me of that." And he has some cookies, and it's a very traditional Superman goes to his parents for some moral support.
And I just love that they're like, "Son, you gotta focus on the people that can't help themselves."
Yes.
And let the people that can't help themselves do what they need to do. Lois is tough. We're tough. I love how I think it's Ma Kent's like, this is not the first Kansas winter we've ever dealt with.
Yeah.
But I do like that he is preoccupied, and it's honestly just nice to see Superman interacting with the Kents.
Yeah.
After not having it for so long.
Between this and the Mark Waid story, there's a couple of really good little Superman beats this week. But this issue does have a couple of pages at the end. It kind of, again, it's like an epilogue to it where it is teasing some of the other stuff, which is going back to the stag son, the evil stag son, who's the one who raised all this, and he's making his employees work even though they're in an ice age because he's a prick.
Yeah. In Gotham, I also like that shot of the bat signal just constantly on because it's endless winter.
Yeah,
of course.
Things are bad. But the cliffhanger here, the tease, and so unlike the Flash issue, this does actually have a cliffhanger. So, and again, maybe this is designed because they knew they were coming out in the same week. So this is the this is the second one. So this is the one that has to like have the cliffhanger for next week. But and the big chunk of ice they've got from where the fortress was is there's 3 life forms trapped in the ice that are alive. They've got heat signatures. So it's like, who are these ice forms? I mean, my guess would be this Viking Justice League or some of them anyway. But I mean, I don't know for sure.
Oh no, it's the family. There's 3 left.
Oh, you think it's the mother, the daughter, and the son?
I think it's the mother. Yeah.
I think the reason why I was thinking some of the Viking Justice League is just because of the sizes of them, but you may be right.
I mean, who else could it be? I mean, Viking Prince is a human.
True.
Right.
Yeah,
Hippolyta.
Hippolyta and Black Adam are accounted for, so yeah, it would just be the Swamp Thing. Yeah, you're right. There's not enough of them.
Yeah, so I'm just not to shoot your theory down. I immediately thought, well, there's 3 family members left. We saw one tragically die.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be the family. So,
if it's not, that could just be the Swerve, and who knows?
Yeah, it's either the family or it's something new that's going to introduce a whole new element to this.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like events that are fun too, and this one so far is fun.
And and this stag son, his whole thing is that he just wants to like use the Kryptonian tech embedded in the crystals to take over the world. It's very old school Lex Luthor in a lot of ways.
It is.
He wants to reshape the world. He wants to new beachfront property.
Yeah.
So
Lextopia.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, I dug this. I enjoyed this more than the Flash issue, but that's not to downplay that one because I think that was also had a lot of good qualities. But this one is a really nice like sort of slice of life Superman moment. Everything with him and Lois, and then with the Kents, like all of it feels like it's just really in character. Feels like a sweet sort of. Now, I mean, you could debate that the only really important parts of this issue to drive the story forward is the flashback and then the 2 pages at the end, and I think there's some truth in that. You could have condensed that Flash issue and the Superman issue into one just endless winter issue 2 if you really wanted to. But I think, given that we're getting these so quickly, there is something nice about these like perspectives that we're getting to sort of sell the world and the like how devastating it is to the world that this is going on. Because what the Flash and Superman perspectives give us is just how dire it is for the population, and just the fact that everyone is dealing with this winter, and Lois is out there in her gloves and her hat, and she's trying to like escort survivors through the snow. It's given us the impact on everyone. So yeah, no, I think it is valid, even though you could, in theory, cut that out and just condense this down to less issues if you wanted to. But
I do like that, especially in the Superman issue, because of course he's going to try to go and help as many people as he can, and to get a double dose of that in the metal tie-in, the Mark Waid story, and then here, and it just again, of course, that's what Superman would do in these big moments.
Yeah, it's constant. That makes sense. And I like the art more in this issue for sure, as we mentioned.
Yes,
I think it's really pretty.
Hestor.
Yeah. Maybe a name I'll have to try and remember because I did quite appreciate this. I think it's just especially I think suited for Superman in a lot of ways. I think just slightly cartoony proportions, but not too cartoony, just a little bit. Like just a little bit cartoony.
Very, very square jawed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially whenever anything's in shadow, it looks really good because it's just those deep inky blacks. And for example, one of the pages where he's fighting an ice monster and he's like got shadow covering half of his body, but the yellow of the S is still coming through and the red eyes. It looks really pretty. Really simple stuff. So in a good way, I mean. So not overly complex, not a bunch of scratchy lines, very clean, very neat. Dig it. All right, what are you giving?
I was gonna say that's the type of art I expect in Superman, right? Is the clean, scratchy kind of give to the street level Batman-y stuff. But I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
I'm probably gonna go with a solid 8. I think. Like another solid chapter. I'm into the romp that it is, building the backstory of the villain, the stuff with the stag of moving forward, and then just the good Superman vibes, good art. Solid 8 out of 10, I think, for me. Wonder Woman 768, Mariko Tamaki writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. So now we know that this run's coming to an end, and we've only got a couple more issues left. It's kind of an interesting perspective, knowing how short this run is actually going. It's essentially just been one long arc. Ultimately, I think by the time it's done, it's maybe going to be like somewhere in the 8 to 10 issue range. I think all in.
Yeah, and I don't say it's messy, but it just feels like the inclusion of Lord. I don't know. It felt like a speed bump, almost. And that really the end game is Liar Liar. And there's a lot of cool turns for Liar Liar here that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I think
motif.
I think Liar Liar in this issue finally kind of clicked, and I got why what the concept and what the potential of the character was, because all of a sudden this idea that, you know, either intentionally or accidentally, it sounds intentional, that she killed her mother by making her drive into a truck when she was in the back of the car, and she herself got injured as a kid. Never knew who her father was at the time. But Maxwell Lord was secretly paying for her, you know, medical care, but the medical care being kind of like to keep her in control and keep her locked up and keep her away from the world. The idea being that, oh wait, if Maxwell Lord thinks she's dangerous and should be held captive somewhere, then shit, she must be dangerous because he's Maxwell Lord. But the thing it introduces here is the idea that she is schizophrenic and hears essentially messages from her bunny, who talks to her and tells her to do things. And she gets this delusion over the course of the issue that she is a knight and that she is going to slay the queen, which is Wonder Woman. So we get this ongoing thing as she's like using her mind control to essentially convince people of what she's also believing, and to let her out of her cell, to, you know, let her go wherever. Because I think one of the things that I really liked is that when we get to eventually see her show up somewhere, she isn't actually wearing this suit of armor that we see her in, that she sees. She's just wearing like a big, you know, loose-fitting sweater and some whatever. But she sees this, and one of the great things is when she goes to Wonder Woman's apartment, and we get the little flashback of her going to the apartment, is that, you know, we see her in these like frumpy clothes talking to the landlord or whoever it is. But then when we see it from her perspective, she's in this suit of armor, and he's like this like gargoyle, like holding like a set of keys. And I was like, oh, I'm actually really liking this. I'm liking this idea of like, this is how like messed up her mind. It's not just that she can control minds, it's that her mind itself is actually unstable and she's seeing things that aren't there, and that's kind of what makes her very dangerous. But in a really sympathetic way, where you don't just want Wonder Woman to beat her, you want her to help her. And I think that's actually a really good tactic to take with a character list, because Maxwell Lord is so heinous and so villainous that you don't want him to be helped, you want him to be defeated. But Liar, all of a sudden I'm like, no, I actually want to show her sympathy. Yeah,
it's a typical Wonder Woman villain that I feel like. Wonder Woman being the symbol of compassion in the DCU, of course tries to help her villains. And when it's someone like Max Lord, it's like that only goes so far. But with Liar Liar, you know, you're like, oh no, it's a lot like, it reminded me of Silver Swan a little bit. That it's this person that's not really in control of themselves, and so Diana has to deal with that.
Yeah, I think that's the part.
In addition to surviving,
I think that's the part that's so intriguing here. It's someone who's not really in control of themselves, but they can control anyone. That is a really like scary thought and idea. And I think, you know, maybe someone who like knows more about these conditions would maybe critique this, and I'm not, but at least from my perspective, the idea of taking something as schizophrenia and mixing it with a character who has telepathy and like telekinesis, well, not telekinesis, but telepathy, that is like such an interesting combination, and seeing what that becomes of that character, and the idea that she's put herself on this almost like Dungeons and Dragons mythical quest to take down this evil, you know, Wonder Woman. Because, you know, the final page, the cliffhanger, is like her version of what Wonder Woman looks like. We see this big scary Wonder Woman. That is a really interesting idea, and I think for the first time, I mean, I've enjoyed the story up until now, but this was the first time where I've really got excited about Liar Liar and really been into like what she is. Obviously, there's a speed bump along the way where Deathstroke shows up to get to Etta, not because he's specifically targeting her, but because it basically had a job where if anyone ever accessed the medical records of Liar Liar, that he would show up and kill whoever saw them. And Wonder Woman is able to talk him down based on the subject of, like, you know, children being mistreated by their fathers, because Deathstroke can relate to that.
Yeah.
And has some, you know, some deep-seated problems there. But Yeah, I really dug this issue. And I think this added a lot to what's been here so far, and I won't quite say it's lived up to what Tamaki's run in my head could have been. Probably just because it's about to end. So like, I mean, even if like every issue now is as good as this till the end, it's still only the last 3 or 4 issues out of all of it. But
right.
I think this added a lot of interesting concepts and depth to Liar Liar for me, where she's not just another villain anymore. I like this quite a bit.
Right. So I was also getting Alice in Wonderland vibes because the White Rabbit, right? Yeah. She's following the White Rabbit down into a hole and whatnot. And so just that aspect of it too, that this is a world of her own making, and she's through the looking glass now.
Yeah.
Like I really thought that was a real nice subtle put in there by Tamaki.
Yeah, when they realize she's gone, they lure her in by letting her know that her father's not dead, that she didn't succeed. He's still in hospital, alive. So it lures her into the hospital. And again, when she sees the hospital, because I love this page, is Wonder Woman's waiting in the hospital. And my only critique of the art there actually is that for some reason I don't feel that Wonder Woman's small enough in this panel to not have the face details in some way. She's just got a completely blank face, and that looked a bit odd to me. But what I love about this panel is you see like Liar Liar standing in front of the hospital, and it's just her in her hoodie, and it's just the hospital. But then her version of it at the bottom, which is it's not a box, it's more of a fantasy style like portal looking panel, and she's in a suit of armor. The rabbit's floating beside her, and it's a castle. She's getting into a castle to take on Wonder Woman. I dug this. I rather dug this.
Yeah.
I think this is the best issue of this run so far.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's Tamaki. This is where it finally, I think, she's hit their stride or hit her stride with this character. It's starting to pull together, and of course, you have the little dips in with Deathstroke, and it's like, okay, that's fine.
I mean,
I can deal with Diana versus Deathstroke. It's fine, but it's not the coolest thing, which you wouldn't think based off the cover.
Yeah.
I
mean, I like some of the Max Lord stuff. I just thought it was weird how quickly it ended. Like, I thought they were really setting up like a long-term partnership that was going to eventually lead to betrayal, but it wrapped up so quickly. But this issue, I finally really got an excitement and sort of got, okay, this is what Tamaki's going for, and I really like this depth of eye to Liar Liar here, and this concept of her like just living in her own fantasy world and not seeing things as they are is super interesting, and again makes her kind of sympathetic because she's not in complete control. And it's always nice to see Wonder Woman tackle villains like that. There's a reason why a lot of her villains are. I mean, she has some villains that are just outright villainous, and that that being Max Lord, Dr. Psycho's another one like that.
Dr. Psycho's one that I never want to see a sympathetic version of.
Oh, of course.
Especially after watching the Harley Quinn show, like they kind of touch on it where he's almost like they're constantly kicking him while he's down, but then he has these moments where like, oh no, yeah, he's vile. And so Dr. Psycho's one. Like I can deal with Kale in Silver Swan and even Cersei. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that come up, but there are certain ones that need to be just
Whereas Cheetah, Silver Swan, No Liar Liar, these are the villains that do have this sympathetic side where you don't want to just see them get destroyed. You want to see them be rehabilitated, and it's heartbreaking when they can't be. Cheetah is obviously the most famous example and the one that has some of the best stories, but it's definitely something that pops up.
And if you want a really nice origin of Cheetah, go to Wonder Woman.
Oh, here we go.
Issue 8, which is one of my favorite issues of all time.
Yeah. But I will say, as much as we're saying it compares to these characters, I think that the take on this character is unique. This tying it to mental illness in this way, I do think is very interesting and different to those characters. So, I like
and it
that.
doesn't take it lightly either, because Diana instantly gets it, right? That she's like, I have to save her. I don't have to defeat her. I have to save her.
Yeah.
And I like that because I like the idea of Wonder Woman is this symbol of truth. And what is the truth to someone that has the mental issues that Liar Liar has? Right? Like, so how's that going to play out now?
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and I like that.
Yeah, I was super into this. I'm very impressed with this issue. And, it is coming a little bit late in the run now that we know it's ending, but I think it does retroactively make some of the Liar Liar stuff a bit more interesting. So I'm happy to have. I'm happy with the. I'm happy with the improvements. I'm happy with the issue overall. Matt, what are you giving the issue?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to agree with the 8.5, and yeah, it's the sort of thing where if it keeps this up, like, you know, I could definitely see this back little run of issues before it ends being up to about the standard of maybe the X23 book, because, you know, Tamaki's a fantastic writer, and I just wonder if you know, maybe the run length, or maybe the way like she had to tie into things that were going on before maybe hindered the start of it, and obviously because it's not that long a run, there wasn't enough time to get out of it. I'm not really sure, but. Or maybe it was just a case of, oh, she had a weaker start this time, and that's fine. You know, writers are allowed to do that. But there you go. So that's a 8 out of 10 from, or yeah, 8.5. Sorry, for me. So there we go. Batman Black and White issue 1 is the last book we're going to look at today. This is the Black Label book, and this is kind of a you know, a comeback. I never read the original Black and White, but it was a series back in the 2000s with black and white art. Short stories by various creators, and they brought it back here as a Black Label book. It kind of seems fitting in a lot of ways to do it under that. So obviously we'll mention the different creators as we go here.
You go ahead, because I didn't read this one.
Yeah, I read this one. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm very conflicted on it, honestly.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing. I feel like black and white art, I'm not against it. Like, I think some black and white stories are really good. It's one of the weird things, though, when I talk about movies, and we talk about movies being in black and white, and I hate when people say, oh, I won't watch a black and white movie. One of the things that movies do, though, when the difference between like a movie in color and a movie in black and white, is that movies that were shot in black and white were lit differently. The art of lighting a movie in black and white when you're shooting in black and white is different from lighting a movie in color. And part of the reasons for that is because in black and white, black and red can look the same. So you don't want, so if you have a character in a black suit, you don't want them standing against a red background, because then they'll just kind of blend into it. So there's a lot of ways to light it to separate them and things like that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, the reason why I'm talking about this art of lighting differences between black and white and color movies, is because I think the same kind of goes with comic art, in the sense that color is one of the big differentiators that lets the art kind of pop in different ways and really clears up what certain things are doing. And so many artists are drawing knowing that they're going to be colored. I think black and white art, if you don't draw it in the right way, where it's drawn with the understanding from the start that it's going to be black and white, and it uses all of the other techniques that the art can use to make things pop and be clear, I think sometimes you end up with what looks more like just a mess of lines, and you have to really focus in and look for what it's actually doing, because it isn't just like, you know, when I look at most comic book art, as long as it's good art, I instantly see that Batman's doing a thing. For example, I can see that in this panel he's kicking someone in the face, and I'll see a lot of other details, and it'll all process in my brain really quickly because I can just see it. But there are some stories in this where, especially the first one, which is the Demon's Fist by James Tynion IV, art by Trad Moore. This art here, there's definitely some pages where it just looks like a mess of lines, and I really had to stop and kind of like look for what the image was doing and saying, and it felt like it was taking me longer to actually just understand what I was looking at, in a way that was a little bit frustrating at times. The actual concept of the story was quite good, though, I will say. It was basically about one of Raz's henchmen. And it was the idea, it was all his narration, and it was the idea that he doesn't have a name, he doesn't have a rank, he's just there to work as an appendage of Ra's al Ghul. And his goal, his mission, his purpose is simply to land one hit on Batman. That's his entire purpose. And he refers to him as a detective, just as Raz does. But he's jumping through. There's a big fight happening in this building in Gotham, and it's all about him getting to Batman. And he's sparring with Batman, and Batman's blocking him. And then eventually, he does actually land the hit as a full page spread as he finally lands this hit. And then Batman whips the piss out of him. He completely beat. But as he's lying there in pain, all he talks about is that he feels great peace because he fulfilled his purpose. And he feels as part of large as something whole, and he hopes that one day he'll feel that again to land that one hit. And it's just essentially what it is to get into the psychology of the people that Raz employs, and how he's brainwashed them to just feel like their one purpose is all they're there for. As a story, I actually kind of like. As a short, 8-page, 10-page story. I thought it was a really good little unique perspective to take on it. I wasn't in love with. I felt like it was going a little bit too wacky and dreamlike at times. There's not a lot of shading on a lot of it, which makes it just feel like a lot of lines. So yeah, a bit too wavy in places for my taste. So that was the Demon's Fist.
So is this just the printing version of the digital first black and white? Because back during the first, like when comics weren't shipping, they were going down on digital first. Because this sounds familiar.
I don't know. I never read.
I just clicked on it to
the digital
find out.
ones.
Let me see.
The second story is one of these things you occasionally get in these anthologies where it's just Batman recounting the history and the importance of being Batman. But the narration is told through the perils that dropped when his parents were killed. So yeah, I kind of rolled my eyes. The art's much better than this one, I thought, but there's a lot of nice shading and stuff. Who was on this book? Hold on, let me find the credits here. This was James J.H. Williams III.
So just J.H. Williams III.
Yeah, well, it says
he probably wrote it and drew it.
Yeah, Todd Klein and Andy Curry also credited, so I'm not entirely sure how that broke up. But,
well, I know Andy Curry was one of the editors that got let go unceremoniously.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah.
So I will say though, the last page is kind of interesting. It's probably the nicest art in the story as well, where Batman's just leaping off a building and there's signals in the background. There's a lot of nice shading here. This is the type of black and white art I really like. I think you need a lot of good shading, because it still sells the leather or the gloves. You still get the idea of the textures, which was completely missing in that first story. So I couldn't get into that at all. But what's interesting here is that this is a reference to 2020, basically, this last page, because Batman puts on like a breather, like a mask, and he jumps off the building, and essentially there's like a there's been these perils that have been kind of around the book, but as the book goes on, they kind of turn into like what looks like a virus. They sort of turn into like a little virus cell. Okay. And in the last page, these virus cells sort of form DNA. So him jumping off the roof, I mean, obviously you could just assume, oh, there's a scarecrow attack or there's a Joker toxin or whatever. I feel like it's so kind of just thrown in there at the end, though, that I kind of felt like to me that this was just like a, hey, the virus is in DC as well and Batman's wearing a mask, so wear a mask or something. I don't know. It felt like a reference to the real world to me. Yeah. Story-wise, though, it was just, here's a panel of him fighting this villain, here's a lot of panels of him fighting the Joker. Art's really nice, but ultimately didn't amount to much. So. The next story was First Flight, which was Paul Dini with Andy Kubert. And this is a story where a team of ninja man-bats show up in the Batcave. Batman, in his narration, says, ninja man-bats always attack in swarms. That's the first thing he says about them, and I'm like, yeah, of course they do. Ninja man-bats, they always attack swarms. Now, I don't know if this is something that came up before. Maybe it's referenced in an old story, because this is a team of ninja man-bats that Talia has trained. And
that was from Morrison's run.
Is it? Okay, yeah, so this is actually coming from...
Yeah, it was from Batman and Son. That was the first,
So, was that from Batman and Son? I don't remember that. Yeah,
that was Batman and Son, because I remember Grant Morrison making a big deal about the Ninja Man-Bats.
I do not... Okay, my mind is completely... Because I read that, but okay, my mind completely forgot that. Basically, this team of Ninja Man-Bats to show up were like this original batch that she created that were unstable, and have essentially came to Gotham, to the Batcave, because they're looking for their true home. So it's basically just Batman fighting these Ninja Man-Bats, Alfred stuck in the Batplane, hiding, and then Talia eventually shows up and tranks them all, and explains what they are. And that's basically it. I like the ending of it, though, because basically they send the Ninja Man-Bats to Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing's sort of giving them a home in the swamp. And
that's nice.
And I will say, Kubert's art of Swamp Thing in black and white as he comes out of the water in the last panel is absolutely gorgeous. I think some of Kubert's art does suffer not having the colors, I think, but there are some panels at the Swamp Thing one at the end that looks really good in black and white. So, yeah, that's cool. So that's probably the best one so far, I think. The next story is just one of these ones. It's a poem, as lots of abstract art is playing out. This was a chore. This story. Uh, Something about Batman having his wings. I don't know.
Yeah, I just remember you saying that the Aquaman one was kind of like a poem.
Yeah.
And now I know why you said that.
Yeah,
your mind was primed.
This is even more like a poem. I'm just going to read the start of this, okay? This is the first page. This is the 1st half of the first page. The interval. My body hurts.
Yeah.
My brain struggles driven by nausea. Eager to throw up all those liquid shadows. They rip my insides, pulling them through my mouth to invert time. To merge with me, to drink this. Dare I put them wounded? It just goes on like that. Emma Rios wrote and drew this. Not for me. I'll just say it's not for me and leave it there. And then the final story is called Metamorphosis. This is G. Willow Wilson writing with Greg Smallwood on art. I will say this is my favorite art of the issue. And might even be my favorite story as well, actually. No, it is. It's definitely my favorite. The best was definitely saved for last. The panels at the start of this of Batman standing on a fire escape, and the way that the deep blacks and the shadows are used, it just looks so atmospheric. This is when I thought of the potential of a black and white Batman story, this is exactly the sort of thing I was looking at. This is an early Batman story where he's trying to get somewhere on time because it doesn't say what the villain is. It just says that there's a girl who's been held kidnapped and there's at least one dead person in this apartment. And he comes in the window and it looks very early days Batman. The ears look kind of, it's not full on Detective 27 ears, but it's kind of close to it. It's
close enough.
Yeah. And you hear, music playing from downstairs, and it's just this, him quietly walking down, and he finds this girl sort of hunched up on a couch, and the dead body's there, and he goes into the kitchen, and it's actually Killer Croc. And Croc is, it's again black and white, really gorgeous art here. And I'd never heard of this artist, I don't think, so I was really impressed with how great all this looked. The action looks good as well. And earlier on in the issue, Batman, or in the story, I should say, Batman talked about how usually there's a twist to these crime scenes that he can't predict. And the twist here is that the girl actually hits him with a frying pan when he's trying to fight Croc, and he's like, "Oh, there's the thing that I miscalculated." That's what he calls it. And Croc jumps out, and Batman's like, "Why are you helping him?" And she's like, "You don't understand. I've not been kidnapped. He's nice to me. He gave me a place to stay and a warm meal." And Batman's like, "He left a dead body in the living room." And she kind of shrugs and goes, "Well, no one's perfect." It was kind of almost a really dark joke. I was like, "Oh, I actually kind of like that."
Yeah.
But you get outside and he's dealt with Croc, and it's raining in the black and white. It looks really nice. And Croc's got a big, muzzle on now, and she's been put in a police car, and she's saying, "No, don't take him away. You don't understand." And Batman's like, "Look, I'll let the police deal with you now. To if you're an accessory after the fact, blah blah." And Croc just yells at Batman, because Batman says she's not your concern anymore. Because Croc's basically trying to stick up for her. He's like saying, "Hey, don't arrest her. Like she's not guilty of anything. Don't hurt Melanie." And Croc just responds to him, her not being his concern, and he's like, "My concern. You get to take off that cowl at the end of the day and be a man. What do I get? What do I get?" And it seems like Croc was genuinely taking care of this girl, and she yells out, "I want you to know it's not the man I liked. It was the beast." And Batman he's up on the rooftops in the pouring rain, and he says he gets the first part right. I do take off the cowl, but he's wrong about the second part. He's wrong about what's underneath. I mean, it's not groundbreaking Batman story stuff here, but the atmosphere is really good, and the twist of Croc caring about someone and Batman not quite understanding the idea that there's a surprise underneath to Croc, but Batman doesn't have that surprise underneath because he is just Batman through and through. I think it's a neat little story. It's a neat little short, and honestly, it's the only one out of this whole book that I would say is worth reading.
Gotcha.
The Ninja Batman one's kind of fun, but honestly, I wasn't super enthralled with this as a collection of stories. I really like this last one, but the rest of them I wasn't super into. To the point where I'm probably not going to read any more of them. That said, though, it is anthologies, so the next one might be full of bangers for all I know. It's possible. It'll probably come down to how busy is that week. If it's a quiet enough week, I might read the next one. If not, then I'll probably let this go by the wayside, just because, out of the 5 stories in this book, I really liked one. and I flat out kind of hated like 2 or 3 of them. So you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm over the pearls. Period.
Oh yeah,
And
I was
J.H.
rolling
Williams
my
might
eyes.
be a talented storyteller, but like, yeah, I just see that and I was like, I can't.
Some of them sometimes they just don't feel like they have a story. They're just kind of like waxing in a poem about who Batman is, and that's all it is with some art. And sometimes that might work out if the art's just that good or whatever. But here, that wasn't the case for me. So no, the last story by Wilson, who I do like as a writer, so it makes sense that I ended up liking her story. And art again by Greg Smallwood. Actually, is that one word? I think it is one word. It's written vertically, so it was hard to see. It's just Greg Smallwood.
Gotcha.
I was emphasizing a pause, but it's just Smallwood.
Gotcha.
But there you go. I mean, overall, honestly, I have to give this like a 5 because I outright hated like 3 of the stories. The good one at the end does keep it afloat to a point where I'm not going to give it a negative score. I'll go straight down the middle, but I can't really recommend it all that much. But I did really like the last one, so.
Nice.
There you go. That's Batman Black and White issue 1. So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel/moment, favorite art, favorite cover, and top 5 books. And given that I read 5 books and you read 4, we'll just be ranking all the books we read. So we'll start off with panel/moment. Matt, what you got?
So I it's gonna be tough, but it's gonna be from the Titans. I should call it the Titan story. That's what I was calling it all week, but the last stories of the DC universe, it's just there's so many in there. I don't know what to pick. So let me go back through. You know what though? It's gonna be that splash page. As much as I want to pick something with Superman, seeing all the versions of the Titans on there with all of the characters spread out over the over the pages. It looks great. So that's what I'm gonna go with.
Sure. There's a couple of really great Superman moments, but it's very hard to top the proposal. It's very hard to top Barbara and Dick having that moment. And I think I kind of like that they acknowledge, this isn't sticking for now, but like Dick basically saying, yeah, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to keep trying. So I'm all about it. So that's my pick. What is your cover of the week? And before you jump in here, I'm just going to say right away, it's the Gary Frank one from Last Stories of the DC Universe.
Yeah, which stupid me forgot to pick up, and I picked up the Tula Lote, which yeah. So now I'm gonna have to wait for them to put out a print of it and just buy that and hang it on my wall. But yeah, I was very disappointed in myself because this is not a book I'm going to buy twice.
Yeah,
with the price of it. So.
Yeah, I will say though, Batman Black and White does have some phenomenal covers.
Yeah,
there is some really good stuff in there. There's a really demonic looking Batman one that looks absolutely stunning. I highly recommend checking those covers out. There's a lot of them. There's like 9 covers I think for that book.
Okay.
But it is an artist, showpiece, so I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of covers. All right, cool. Although shout out to the Superman special variant as well. That's also quite nice.
Cool. Yeah. The Wonder Woman has a Middleton variant that looks pretty good. I checked out. So yeah.
So cool. So best art of the week.
This one's tough because you got to take the whole book into consideration, right? Right. So that takes out Travis Moore from Last Stories. So it's going to be the Superman Endless Winter special because you got the Santucci stuff at the beginning that I really enjoyed, and then the Hestor art is just my wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's fair. My pick. This is really tough because the best art I saw this week was probably that Last Story in Batman Black and White, but I can't really give it to that book because I didn't really like a lot of the other art in it. I thought Sandoval's art in Wonder Woman was pretty solid. I thought Hestor was good in Superman. And I think Santucci in the flashback stuff was also solid. So, and like you say, Death Metal's a bit up and down between the artists. So I guess I'm going to go with Superman Endless Winter Special Issue 1 as well. Your mic's going, by the way, Matt. I almost said your Matt's going.
Same thing, right?
Your Matt's going, Mike. Your name's Mike now.
Oh, fun. Just like in school where teachers would call me Mike instead of Matt.
Oh, really?
Actually, Freudian slip,
fair
yeah.
enough. I looked up, there was a thing online, you could probably still find it if you look for it, but it was basically like what my name would be if I was born in America based on how popular Peter was in the UK versus what that matches up with.
Yeah.
And it was Mike. If I was born in the US, my name would have been Mike, apparently.
Yeah, me and my wife both have the names because she's an Ashley. That in the 80s in the US, they were both so really, really popular. So growing up in elementary school, we were always one of like 3 or 4 in the class.
That was like Kevin in my my school. There was a lot of Kevins.
Gotcha.
A lot of Kevins. But yeah, so what were we talking about? Best art? We did that. All right, top books. All right, you're ranking your books, Matt.
Right. So number 1 is the Endless Winter, Superman Endless Winter Special. 2 is Wonder Woman. 3 is Dark Knight's Death Metal, and 4 is Flash. There's that 767.
Yeah. Okay. My number 1 is. I'm gonna give it to Wonder Woman. 768. Number 2 is Last Stories of the DC Universe. Number 3 is Superman Endless Winter Special. 4 is The Flash, 767. And then last place is Batman Black and White, unfortunately. But I did really like that last story. Let that be known. So there you go. Nice and simple. So what is coming next week, you may ask, kind dear listeners at home?
A lot.
Or in your car, or in whatever. So coming next week, we have Batman 105. Should be interesting to see how that goes. We get Nightwing 77. We have Justice League 58, which is chapter 5 of Endless Winter. So that's not the next chapter, but it is next week. We have Dark Knight's Death Metal issue 6. We have Aquaman 66, which is Endless Winter chapter 4. We have Superman 28, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about that because you've not been here for the last couple of Superman issues, so I'm actually kind of curious to talk to you about both Superman in action when they pop up.
A lot of hot takes.
Yeah. Some things I love, some things I don't love. Although
the art's great.
And Superman, not action.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Superman. I was looking at the Superman cover.
Sure. I was gonna say, Matt, hold on a minute. We got Catwoman 28 coming out next week. We got Rorschach issue 3, Batman's Grave issue 12, Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 1, Green Lantern season 2 issue 10, Teen Titans Endless Winter Special issue 1, that's chapter 6 of Endless Winter, Amethyst issue 6, as Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, number 107, if you care. So
the order for Endless Winter next week is Aquaman, Justice League, Teen Titans.
Yes. So as a busier week next week, I am excited to. Obviously, neither of us are going to be reading the Tales from the Dark Multiverse book. There's no chance in hell.
As much as I want to, because it is Crisis. It's the original. I don't have time. Not with Endless Winter, and I know I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because I am going to get those, but I'm all the way into Endless Winter. So this will be one of the few times that I'm breaking my.
But Endless Winter
6, 7. Yeah,
but that's literally
only reason why.
That's literally parts 4, 5, and 6, so it's not like a tie-in to a book. So, but I'm looking forward to Catwoman because that's been great. I'm looking forward to Rorschach. Looking forward to Endless Winter. And we get the next main chapter of Death Metal. So there's a lot of cool stuff next week. A lot of exciting stuff.
I only have 2 extra than normal, so I'm trying to limit to about 6.
Yeah.
But,
that's cool.
I can count if I want to break a little rules. I can count Endless Winter all as one. That's really how I'm gonna read it. Like this will be one of the few weeks I don't read Death Metal first. So I'll probably jump straight into Aquaman.
I mean, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 books over. That's fine. That's a normal amount for me. So I have 7 books. So yeah, and maybe a Patreon book. I should have probably done one this week, but I kind of slept in, so I didn't have time to do a Patreon book, so I'll just have to squeeze that in later. That said, it's a 5-week month, so I can maybe push it. Then again, I'll check how busy the following weeks are before I make that commitment. But yeah, so that's cool. As for Connor's Patreon books, by the way, Connor is adamant he'll be back to catch up with the Patreon books of this month. At the end of the month, or if not the start of next month. The only exception to that might be is that one of his Patreon books did want him to read Action Comics this month. So if you are that person, there's a chance Connor might not be back in time for when we actually do Action Comics. So it's up to you at that point if you want Connor to read it himself later and talk about it again when we're not talking about it because we've already done it, or if you would rather change because it's going to be in a different week. We don't know for sure yet, so maybe have a backup pick. depending if you don't, if him reading it later is not necessarily what you wanted to read it with us, so that we could sit and all enjoy the misery of John Romita Jr. art together.
I'm so ready for it to be over.
I know. I hate. It's such a shame as well because I really like. See, when they revealed that what's her face was from Earth 3, I was like, oh, this is such a good idea. But they are.
The Bendis Superman run is kind of, I feel like it's run its course. Like, I was really excited for it, but I just feel like it's spinning its wheels, and I don't know why, because it doesn't seem like there's a reason for it. Like,
yeah, we can get into this next week because we.
No, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm very just disappointed. I will say the last issue of Superman I did enjoy.
The last one was good. It was
what happened. Yeah, still don't like that character.
No, but the way Superman tackled the fight, as it were, was very Superman. So that was very good.
It was, and I like that. So it just feels like he only has energy for one book at a time, and they have to swap.
Yeah.
So
yes, that's a shame. It's a shame. But yeah, so more on that next week then when we talk about Superman.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go. That is the books. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for all the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are Patreon producers, which means they are patrons at $20 or more at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can support us though for as little as $1 per month and get some goodies for that. You can obviously at the $5 tier get early access to the podcast by 1 day. Get it whenever it's ready on the Saturday as opposed to wait until the Sunday. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in that. It is worth mentioning though, you can also do simple things like the podcast on YouTube. Liking's a big deal there. Rating the 5 stars and giving us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from also helps us out a lot. Helps us find new audience members and helps the podcast grow. So all of that is super important stuff. So please do any of that you can, and we will be mostly appreciative of it. Not Connor because he's awful and ginger, but me and Matt will be very appreciative. So that is that. Get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. But otherwise, that is about us. And I mentioned the TV news earlier, but yes, there's an hour and 40-minute TV news that I did on my own that I recorded last night. It will be up by the time this goes live. It'll be up last night. So go check that out since I had to do it myself for so goddamn long. Unless you're going to get mad at me for being really cynical about Star Wars and Disney, in which case maybe not.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but as long as you don't cross the line to tell people they're stupid for wanting and liking these things, I think you're good.
Yeah, I don't think I said it along those lines.
No, I think you're good. Just it's like I like to point out, you don't have to watch it all. Like I'm definitely not watching all of the Marvel stuff. So I'm not gonna have time. But
yeah. It probably helps with all 6 episode things as opposed to, and they're all one season.
Yeah, but are they going to be like Mandalorian that are varying, runtimes, or are they all going to be 52 minutes?
I think they're all hour longs, just because. If I remember correctly, I remember when Elizabeth Olsen was talking about WandaVision, she said it was 6 hours, and she didn't know how many episodes it was. She just knew it was 6 hours So we know it's 6 episodes now, so it's going to be 6 1 hour episodes.
Yeah. Okay. Well. We'll see. I might have a little bit more time, but not that much more time. So Loki, though, hooey.
They are going to be weekly, though, Matt. You don't have to binge them.
That's good. Which I appreciate with something like The Mandalorian, because we get to have conversation about it, and it's
not with me. You don't.
No. I'm saying the royal we.
Yes.
About it online, and I have to stay off until I can watch it, which is fine. But it's fun to be part of the weekly conversation versus something that gets dropped at one time. Everybody watches it and then they don't ever want to talk about it again, So I definitely like this a little bit. That was my main problem with the Netflix model for the Marvel shows is like all my friends would stay up and watch all of Daredevil. Mm-hmm. By the time I caught up, nobody wanted to talk about it anymore. So, I'd enjoy it on my own pace. But yeah, weekly.
Do you think the Queen cracks a joke when she's going for a piss and she says, "I'm going for a royal wee"?
Yeah, probably.
I bet she does.
She seems like a delight because that The Crown is definitely a documentary, as I've learned from the internet.
Apparently, actually, someone wants Netflix to put a disclaimer saying this is fictional on it.
It's like, well, yeah, clearly Oh man, people.
Oh dear.
Uh,
So silly.
but yeah, so
Anywho, that is the show. That has been College to the Multiverse episode 231. So hopefully you've enjoyed it and you've liked our rambles about DC Comics. Yeah, so yeah, that is it. So thank you once again. Join us again next week. Keep reading DC Comics and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Titans together.